We're ready to roll?
Ready.
All right, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the February 22nd meeting of the Pequannock Township Council. Ms. Marsh.
In accordance with the requirements of New Jersey's Open Public Meetings Act, notice of this meeting was included in the annual meeting notice, which was filed in the office of the Township Clerk, posted on the bulletin board in the municipal building, published as a legal notice in the Suburban Trends newspaper, and distributed to all persons requesting notice in accordance with Township policy.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a prayer and moment of thanks for individuals serving our nation. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Most gracious Providence, we ask that you bless this governing body with an abundance of wisdom and understanding so that every deliberation will result in actions which will promote the common good and general welfare for all the people of Pequannock Township. Amen.
Okay, the clerk will please call the roll.
Mr. Dreese?
Present.
Mr. Hurd?
Here.
Mr. Cole?
Here.
Mrs. Russell?
Here.
Mayor Florence Lynch?
Here.
We have a quorum.
Okay. There are no presentations scheduled for this evening, so we're going to go right into reports from volunteers at this time. Are there any reports or comments from any volunteers serving our community? Come on up, Janice.
Hi, Janice Mangiuri, 17 Foothills Drive. I'm coming as a representative for Pequannock Cares. As you know, we started a new organization about a month or so ago. Last month was our first event, our Touch a Truck event. At that time, we accepted donations for the first aid and fire departments. We were able to give $125 to Fire Company Number 1, $125 to Fire Company Number 2, and $125 to the First Aid Squad. Just wanted to keep you posted on what we're doing now. Our next meeting, regular meeting, monthly meeting is February 28th at 7 o'clock at the Legion in Pequannock. March 18th, we have a Paint and Sip fundraiser. So we invite everyone to come out and support CARES and support the Legion. On the 28th for that Paint and Sip, we're painting wine glasses. March 27th, we're working on a fun run for the kids in town. And we still have a couple more events that we're working on. If you check out our CARES Facebook page, you can let us know. We're asking people to vote on what you would like to see us do or make suggestions of things that we don't have up there that you might be interested in. And that's about it. That's what we got going on.
Great job, Janice.
Thanks so much.
It's wonderful that you were able to get all those donations. That was wonderful.
It's a good community.
Yeah.
Okay, anyone else for volunteers? Okay. Next item on the agenda is public comments. This public comment period will be limited to a total of 30 minutes. An additional period of public comment is reserved later in the meeting. Individuals are requested to limit their questions and comments to 3 minutes. If anyone wishes to be recognized, please come to the microphone with your name and address for the record. Anybody? I'm only looking at you two because you're the only two here. Nope? Okay. That was a quick 30 minutes. Next item on the agenda is our manager's report, so we'll go right into that.
Thank you, Mayor. As introduced at the last council meeting for public hearing and potential adoption this evening, there's the ordinance to establish and preserve a cat bank. Went into some discussion about that last meeting, as we do every year. If there are any specific questions, I can provide amplified explanation. Otherwise, I'll just move on. Additionally, as reported on last meeting, there is an ordinance for the council's consideration for introduction this evening to vacate a right-of-way known as the Lane. This is a right-of-way that exists between Cameron and Park Avenues that exits to Newark Plumpton Turnpike. Previously, there was a lot that would have been landlocked had this been vacated. That situation has cured itself through a subdivision, a merger of the two lots, so that condition no longer exists. Within my manager's report is additional documentation from the township engineer regarding, pictures, tax maps, etc., and an easement will be retained for utilities should the need ever present itself that utilities be run down that right of way. This evening, we have a discussion item on a resident's request for 8 months and drive. Mr. Robertson? Yes, you're here. Mr. Cantizano is also here to discuss the matter for the council. More on that when we get to the discussion item, but there is documentation or a brief explanation in my report. For the council's consideration, we also have a resolution authorizing contracts with various concession providers, an annual process we undertake for those food trucks that present goodies at various activities like fireworks, the Easter event, Halloween events, etc. So this is just a compliance issue from a procurement perspective. If there are any other questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Otherwise, that concludes my report.
I have one.
Any questions?
Yes. I apologize I wasn't at the last meeting, but talking about the lane that's going to be abandoned, who gets the property then? Bless you.
God bless you.
I'm sorry.
The adjacent property owners.
So it's split between property A and property B?
They consolidate different things and then they split it up.
So property owners for 1, 2, and 3 are going to get half of the lane?
Yes, it goes to the middle, as I understand it.
Goes to the middle. Got it. And then there's this one, I'm presuming there's this one hash mark. I understand the flag lot or the landlocked lot, but the other one that was right facing Newark Pompton, so it seems like it's a pretty big piece. Where does that go? Does that go to the lot to the right?
The two hashed lots have been merged.
The 2 hash lots.
The two lots that are to the north of the right-of-way, those lots are now one. That's why the vacation is permitted, because you otherwise would landlock that lot that's highlighted in yellow.
Right, the
They're
one that's
both
in
now
the
one.
back. Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
All right, anybody else? Okay, next on the agenda is public hearings. We have a public hearing on ordinance 2022-04. Ms. Marsh.
Ordinance number 2022-04 is an ordinance to establish and preserve a cap bank with New Jersey SA 40A:44514.
Are there any comments from the council? Is there a motion to open the public hearing?
I'll make the motion to open the public hearing.
Can I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. All right, if anyone in the audience has questions or comments on this ordinance, please come to the microphone and identify yourself for the record. No? Is there a motion to close the public hearing?
I'll
Make a motion.
Can I have a second? Ryan?
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
You didn't make sense.
And can I have a motion to adopt this ordinance?
I'll make a motion to adopt ordinance number 2022-4.
I'll second.
Roll call?
Mr. Dracy?
Yes.
Mr. Hurd?
Yes.
Mr. Cole?
Yes.
Mrs. Russell?
Yes.
Mayor Florence Lynch.
Yes. All right, next on the agenda is the introduction of ordinances. Ms. Marsh.
Ordinance number 2022-05 is an ordinance to vacate any remaining public rights in a right-of-way known as the Lane in the Township of Pequannock.
Okay, Mr. Brewer, any comments? I know you touched on it already.
Unless there's any questions, my report stands as provided.
All right, any comments?
Nope.
Is there a motion to introduce this ordinance on first reading?
I'll make a motion to introduce ordinance number 2022-05.
I'll second.
Roll call.
Mr. Dracy?
Yes.
Mr. Hurd?
Yes.
Mr. Cole?
Yes.
Mrs. Russell?
Yes.
Mayor Florence Lynch.
Yes. The next agenda item will be resolutions. Ms. Marsh, if you could read those.
Beginning with Resolution R 2022-62, awarding a contract for concession provider for various events of the Parks and Recreation Department to Sip and Swirl and the Wicked Waffle Stick in accordance with the request for proposals. 2022-63, awarding the 2022 licenses to participate in the police towing rotation. 2022-64, authorizing tax office refunds, overpayments, or cancellations. And 2022-65, approving payment of the itemized claims as set forth on the February 17th, 2022 bill list and 2018 FEMA elevation escrow list.
All right, are there any comments on the resolutions from council?
I just got a quick, not a stupid question, but do we set the price for these vendors, or is it whatever they It's like found money, I guess, for us, so whatever they're willing to contribute. Because I see they're different, and I was like, how's one guy get away with one and the other?
We just send it out with a blank,
Whatever they
whatever
come
they
back
promote, whatever they propose, and
Okay, it's found money.
and it allows us to be compliant with certain things to allow them to do it.
It helps to draw people to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is the third year we're doing it, so it's been successful in the past couple of years. So hopefully we'll continue that success.
good.
All right, any other comments on the resolutions from council?
I just love the name Wicked Waffle. Stick. That's my 2 cents.
Is there a motion to adopt these resolutions?
I'll make them.
Go ahead.
Ready?
Yeah, you go.
Okay. Make a motion to adopt resolutions R 2022-62 through R 2022-65.
I'll second.
Okay, roll call?
Mr. Dracy? Mr. Hurd?
Yes.
Mr. Cole?
Yes.
Mrs. Russell?
Yes.
Mayor Florence Lynch?
Rock, paper, scissors.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay. Next on the agenda is items for discussion. I believe we have 8 Munson Drive sewer connection request.
Yes, with the council's permission, I'd like to ask Mr. Cantizano to step up to the microphone. The 10,000-foot view is, we have Mr. Robertson, who's here this evening with us, who's made a request of the council, which is allowable by ordinance, for relief from the requirement to connect to the sanitary sewer system, which was completed in 2009. Mr. Robertson's request is supported by documentation that was provided to the council that articulates significant cost issues. And our ordinance specifically provides for a threshold of 15% of the assessed value, and Mr. Robertson has provided some documentation to that effect. Again, with the council's permission, Mr. Cantizano can provide some color commentary to my play-by-play, and then Mr. Robertson, we would invite you also, provided it's acceptable to the council, to speak on the matter.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Here to discuss the issue with 8 Munson Drive. As Mr. Brewer has articulated, we have had several sewer connection projects in the township over the last decade or so. And as sewer lines are installed, properties that are along the sewer lines must connect. It's an ordinance requirement. It's 279-9A. And there really are no exceptions to that. If they are within the sewer line, they must connect to the sewer within 3 years after the line was installed. This particular line was installed in 2009, adjacent to 8 Munson Drive. In 2012, some conversations were initiated with Mr. Robertson. At the time, the health officer and the township engineer had reviewed a lot of details with Mr. Robertson, discussed his options, and for a variety of reasons, some of which I'm not fully briefed on, this has gone on now for 10 years, and it still isn't connected. There is nothing to indicate that he is not in violation of the ordinance. There were several other properties that are also in violation in different parts of town. We're currently pursuing legal action on about 6 properties, and we would be doing so also with Mr. Robertson for failure to connect. However, I did make him aware in July, a letter that was sent to him in July of 21, of his requirement. I gave him a period of time to comply, but I also let him understand that there's a pathway in the ordinance, 279-9B, where he can submit a petition to the council, acting as Board of Health, to ask for relief. And based on the verbiage of that citation, he did present supporting evidence that it is in excess of 15% of the assessed value of the property. So he's got supporting evidence. He did present it. I reviewed this information with Frank Russo, Township Engineer, and the packet seemed complete. There is quite a bit of supporting documentation in the packet that was presented. The language of 279-9B is really economic in nature. It's really not a public health basis for giving a waiver. So to that extent, it purely is a numbers game, and as far as what he's presenting, and if it's something that seems consistent with what the ordinance is allowing. But I do want to note that the system was constructed in 1961, the septic system. We have no records indicating it was ever updated. We have nothing on file that indicates there's a violation, complaints, public health issues with the system. So as far as we're concerned, it appears to be functioning, even though it's older. So we don't have any real pressing public health reason to demand that this connection be made at this time. But it is an older system, and the ordinance is clear. There really is no exception to this rule other than what's articulated in 279-9B. And that's for the council to decide whether his application is complete enough for you to make that consideration.
So the $50,000 that you're talking about, that's the assessed value?
The assessed value is $408,000 on the property.
Okay.
He's 15% would then take you to 60,000 or over. If it's over 60,000, then he would fall into that 15% exception. He'd be in excess of 15% of the assessed value.
Yeah, just to clarify.
That's the tax assessment, that's not an ongoing comparative analysis.
That's correct. It's whatever the assessed value is now, which
Right.
is a moving target. That can change over time, depending on the...
Just to clarify, Councilman Cole references a number that was in my report, but in the documentation, the proposal, the sum of the proposals that Mr. Robertson presented is $84,000. So in my memo, I wrote in excess of $50,000 because we were still working on those details.
So just to clarify, for him, at 8 months in drive to connect to the sewer system, he's looking at $85,000?
Yes.
And
It's essentially an incredibly
What kind
long...
of pipes they putting in the ground?
Well, it's a long run. There is a very deep sewer main. So to get the effluent from the house to the main, you either have to put in a mechanical pump system, where you have to dig a really deep,
Right, and pump up.
and get it to go through rock. There's a lot of rock up there.
Because his house sits on the street and then it goes down.
I mean,
And
that
and
is...
it's a 2-acre lot, and I would imagine the septic is in the back?
Yes.
And is this a very unusual property, like an outlier to a lot of the other ones in town because of the situation?
Yes. I would
I've
say-
never seen anything with these challenges. I don't know what you've seen in terms of the enforcement actions.
Yes, it's unique. He's got a lot of challenges there that are not typical to your average RSA.
All of Munson Ave is sewer now, correct?
That's correct. There's sort of-
And some of those houses next to him really sit low. So they would probably have the same problem, correct?
They may have, yes.
And they've connected?
Correct. So the
How long
challenge...
do they connect? I mean, is this a situation where if you connected 10 years ago, it would have been 8,000, but because of everything that's going on, it's 80,000? Or this
Or
is
it was
just one of
always
those
that.
situations?
I think
that
10
would-
years ago
all
it was
of it.
50,000.
I think it's always been a challenge, which is why, and
That's a
Mr.
huge
Cantizano
number.
can speak from the file, but not from experience. But my understanding is staff, and I believe Mr. Robertson alludes to this in his correspondence, was working with him, to try to set money aside, understanding the hardship associated with it. Whether that should have come to the
Is there
Board of Health
any-
or the council is another conversation.
Right.
As I, in an effort to try to frame the issue, the council has, kind of two bookends and some options in between. There's the requirement to connect, which can be determined, and it is what it is, then the enforcement action commences if a certain time period isn't allowed. There's relief from the requirement to connect, which, through my conversations with Mr. Osteich and Mr. Cantizano, is not something, if relief is granted, period, it persists. So it's not something that, would be cured at transaction of property. It could be used for the basis to repair the septic and get a permit to have a new septic put in, even though it's within 100 feet of the sewer line. Or there could be some kind of time frame that the council could determine is reasonable, and the council could assert that you have X months, years, days.
Could we do it on sale of property, so he's not responsible for it? And we say when it changes hands, if somebody wants to knock it down and build a big thing, then they can connect and you don't have to worry about it.
I'm agreeable to that, has been suggested before.
If I can make a
When was the
comment.
last time you had your septic checked?
I was just going to say that. What's the state of
We
the
should probably
septic
bring him up,
at this
so-
point? Yeah, bring him up, Mayor.
If I may, I just want to say that there's no requirement for anybody to have a regular check or inspection of your septic. So unless it's not functioning, there's odors, there's a public health
Right.
risk associated with it. We haven't documented anything like
Right.
that, so I don't think it really would require him to prove to us that it's
I
functional.
don't
We
think
don't
it's
have
a proof.
anything.
I think the situation that happens is if it's goes in 3 years.
Right, he has
and then
2.5
that'll be a
acres of land.
trigger.
Nobody's going to know if that septic's
Right.
failed but him, that's why.
So are we going
Many
to
times
then
that's
allow
true.
them to put in another septic, and then if it changes hands in 10 years, then they have to upgrade? See, that's where the gray area gets into.
Yeah.
I would feel better if it's a performing system, and now granted, things could change tomorrow, but I mean, if it's, for the most part, a good system, it's working, everything is fine, God bless, great. I mean, because that's a huge number to overcome.
It's a huge number, and as a practice, we don't require connections. In this case, it's required by ordinance. But unless there's a failed system, we don't really impose regulation on
Right.
property owners. There's got to be a basis for it. And so I do want to add that a lot of this is cured by the state law, which we really are not empowered to be in conflict with. The state will not allow us to issue a permit to have a new septic system installed. If there's a failed septic, or if for any reason he'd like to put a new septic in, it's not permitted because he's within 100 feet of his
Right.
sewer.
I mean, it seems,
So the state law really trumps in that instance where he would be forced to because of a failure, this waiver would not survive that.
So he wouldn't meet the state exception?
He would not,
Okay.
in our opinion.
Right.
Now, again, as a defense, he could go in a defense if we took him to court that he had to connect to sewer, and that was his only option because there's a failure, we're pursuing a legal action as a result of that failure. He could, as a defense, say, well, there's extraordinary circumstances that prevent me from connecting to the sewer.
I don't have
But that would be-
$85,000 sitting around.
I mean,
Right, but that would be during legal proceedings in court
Right.
that would have to be determined because it's a state law, and it'd only be in that form that would have to be adjudicated. That would be outside of the purview here. Here, it's the ordinance that we have to consider whether this waiver is applicable or not based on the numbers and the situation he's providing. But the other situation, in the event of a failure in the future, that'll take care of itself because the state law really...
That's going to trigger him to spend 85 grand.
Yes.
to connect.
Yes,
Or whoever is
Then
the
what?
owner?
or whoever is the owner.
that will happen-
85,000 or 40,000 for a new septic.
Right.
Well, that's a good
40,000
point.
is less than 85.
no, that is a good point.
It is, but they're not going to be able to do that, right, under the state?
No,
Right.
he wouldn't be able to do
But the-
that. But
but
even if he
now-
was able to prove he could, it would cost substantial amounts of money with the rock and soil to put a compliance. The rules aren't the same as 1961. We have 2012, it changed yet again, and it's very strict. So we're talking about in excess of 40, possibly 50,000 plus. So you're talking about, and I'm not so sure 84,000 can't, through other means, be brought down to 65, 70,000. There's probably a way to cheapen it a little bit. But you're not talking about a substantial amount of money, but you are talking about a capital improvement that will improve the value of the property if it is connected to sewer. So having another $20,000 or $25,000 cost on top of what a septic would cost isn't necessarily a terrible thing because of the value that you've increased your property by. So those are the
So we
things that...
oh, I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say, so did you want to say something?
I was just going to say, so we don't really have to deal with a requirement that on resale, it get addressed, because it will get addressed on resale
Yes.
just by the nature of how things go. There'll be an inspection of the septic system. It's a 1960 septic system.
It'll fail.
That will come to,
Right.
it will be, it will become an issue.
It will.
And it will have to be addressed.
Right.
At that point in time. And of course,
It will if it's a mortgage. If it's a cash sale, it will
Well, I
not have
suppose
to
you're
be-
right, Dave. If it's,
it will
well,
have to be
if it's a cash sale and the person doesn't care, I guess that's right.
My question is, can we do a 5-year?
Well, that's
You
what I was-
have to do it in 5 years, or if the septic fails before the 5 years?
That's something I was
Can
going
we
to
give
suggest. I was
him
gonna-
that long to-
I was going to, yeah.
I think since we're empowered to grant the exception, I guess the exception or exemption could be granted for a limited
Yeah.
period of time.
I'd
Because
rather
I would
see
like
it.
to hear, if you want to speak in your hardship, but, so this has been going on about
Yeah.
12 years
Come fast.
now?
I'd say 10 since the
Right.
requirement.
I'd rather
So,
see it
and we're
on
saying
sale
10,
of property, because even
15.
10, that's, let's say it's 85,000, that's $8,500 a year. That's still a huge chunk. And granted, if it's 10 years, the septic could still go, and then he still has to replace it, he has to hook up because that's above us, that's state law, there's nothing we can do about that. But I mean, if it lasts for another 20 years and then he sells the house or moves or whatnot, I mean, that's 5 years is way too short. 10 years is still $8,500 a year. I mean, that's my 2 cents.
Yeah.
Well, probably slopes down. I drove by it. I saw it from the front. It slopes down.
Can I address the council?
So,
You can address
Like we're talking about you and you not being here, right?
Or there, just so.
Take over there by the, or here by the mic, whatever works.
Yeah,
that's right.
whatever.
Yeah, and just
you.
just state your name and address for the record again.
My name is David Robertson. I live at 8 Munson Drive, Pompton Plains. And first of all, I'd like to apologize to the council for being a problem here in this, and you guys having to deal with this. My intention has been to hook up for years. My problem is my house is all on rock. The top of the mountain where I am is solid rock. I think your dad built a house up there and learned about that rock?
My uncle did, yeah.
Your uncle? Okay. So the problem is, the issue, and where all the cost comes in, is to get through the rock. It's extremely expensive to get through that rock, and I have a lot of depth and distance to go in order to tie in. The septic is behind the house. Regarding an issue that came up about the condition of the septic, I actually have an access lid right on the ground level, and I can look down, lift the concrete, cover off and look down in the tank. I do have the tank pumped every roughly 4 years, just as it was prudent just for, maintaining the tank. I have no knowledge of a problem with the tank, but I'm not a septic expert in any way. The big issue why this hasn't occurred is it's a lot of money, and I had a heart attack in 2016 that technically I died. I was brought back to life. I had several operations following that, and it financially killed me. Following that, my wife is a veteran. We're both born and raised in this town, and she had some issues dealing with all my problems, and she's been in a VA facility for the past few years.
Well, thank you for her service. I really do appreciate that.
So, it's been my intention to tie in, but,
Have you looked into any programs for the VA? Can the VA help you out or anything?
she's in a VA facility. That's the program.
That's it.
And that's where she's at, and they're taking care of her, and, God bless them for that.
I mean, while we're thinking through what the solution is, I mean, if there was a projection of a 5-year plan, is it something that could occur?
Okay, let me address that.
Could you work towards that?
So the issue that I have is an exorbitantly high cost, and then I have some health issues that preclude me from really making any substantial income. Where I'm at right now, to be honest, is it's my daughter and myself live in the house. I have a son who lives there part-time. He's 25 and he has a girlfriend, so spends time with her. All right, but it's like 2.5 of us living in the house, and it'd be my goal, again, since I'm born and raised in this town, to try to live there as long as I can, God willing. And the issue that I see, and I was working, the previous town engineer, Joe Golden, and prior to him, Fred Herman. They've all been up to my property. They all know the problem. They see the problem. Pete Coriello's been to my property. I mean, everybody that comes here, they go, yeah, it's a problem. It is what it is, and it's just going to take money to solve it. And my issue is I have very limited ability to generate that income right now. And in 3 months, I turn 65. So, it is just, the situation is, if you told me in 5 years, the only thing that would do is just tell me I have to move in 5 years. That's really the only issue, because I don't see that I'm coming up with $80-some-odd thousand, and the numbers are going up, not down. That it's just going to be, it's a date to move out of my house, and I don't really know what that means right now, or where do I go, but, the house is paid for, so for those, and anybody from the council, anybody from the council is more than welcome to come to my house, my property, see it firsthand, the situation, the door's open,
And I guess every year that goes by, this price goes up.
Yeah, we should be clear that the ordinance speaks to the financial hardship, and that's really the decision before the council, whether the financial hardship is such that it justifies an exception. Personal circumstances, understood, we don't
got it.
take into effect, and I'll tell you why, because we have other people with severe personal situations who are required to connect to the sewer, and if we started opening the door to because of your personal financial issues, we grant an exception. We're going to have a lineup of people every time we do a sewer project talking about that, with many of them with good reasons. So
I fully understand.
Yeah, it's about the unusual cost to putting in the system and the documentation there. In terms of a time period, we can certainly do that, or upon resale if you want to put something upon resale. But that's not that's not linked to the personal problems. That would be linked to the financial piece of it. And of course, that might make some sense, because I do think at resale, more likely than not, it's going to have to be addressed anyway. You can make that a condition, because as Mr. Cole said, that it is possible that you'd have a closely held sale, where somebody would just continue to leave the septic unattended, I guess.
Well, I think you can actually put that stipulation in there that it would have to be done, for the town.
But we can just give him the relief because of his assessed is way.
Correct. Because we're satisfied that that's right. Because we're satisfied that the cost of this project would be in excess.
In excess, which is the legal law.
Have we had a lot of these?
This is the first I've ever heard of.
Yeah, we have
had this economic effect.
We've had other, Mr. Cox had.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
Okay.
We've had other people. Early on, though, we're talking about old history, and I'm not sure how carefully it was evaluated in the past. I think people were maybe given
So we have given people relief
We have
in the
given
past?
people relief.
But it was a long time ago. It was before our time.
Yeah.
It was probably, 20 years ago or something.
You mean before my time, too?
To your point and your point, whoever said it, you have to make sure you're doing it just based on cost. And that's why I wanted to know, did this ever happen before? Because we have to be careful. So, I'd be open to having discussions either about time or
I would say
possible resale.
But like he said, if you give him time, you're just telling him when he has to move out. He's in no position to raise money.
So it might have to be
I would say
upon
contingent
resale.
on title transfer. So sale or
What do you think?
give it away or
What do you
whatnot,
guys
because there's still two things that can trigger it. There's the septic can still go bad between now and whenever the title is transferred, or the title. So
let me ask you a question. What would happen if the septic, knock on wood, goes bad next year?
Honestly, I really have no idea. Because I have it pumped out like every 4 years, and they generally tell me it seems to be working. It's never really been addressed of an imminent failure of the system.
I would say the three houses, if you're looking at this house, the three houses to the left had to go through the same issue.
Actually, they didn't.
They didn't?
No, they did not.
How do we find out?
Okay, and the reason they didn't, and this is unique problem that I'm confronted with, is when the town did the sewer system, they ran into all rock only at the top of the hill. So as you run across
the curve, you mean?
As you come around the curve, where I live on the curve, they encountered rock right there. They actually redirected the original sewer line because of the rock they hit. If you look at the original plans and the final plans, they actually redirected trying to solve a problem, and then ran into the rock again 25 feet later, and they hammered rock all the way up the street. So what's unique about my property is 2 months in and 4 months in the first two houses, as you come in on the right, they were actually tied into the sewer system previously, and they come down and they avoided the rock by the nature of how they tied in. One tied in through Sunset Road, which is adjacent right on the corner property, and I believe the other one came across the backside of that property to tie in. So they avoided the rock in Munson Drive. If you come to 6 Munson Drive, my next door neighbor, that house is up on the hill. He came down the driveway and he tied into where they put the sewer connection right at the end of his driveway. They had already chiseled and hammered away the rocks, so when he tied in, he was a gravity feed down the driveway, didn't have the problem. My house is all rock. My house was actually chiseled out of rock when they built the house. It's cut into the side of the mountain. As you go down the hill, you'll get to to him, 10 months in, 12 months in, 14 months in, they didn't hit the rock coming across the property line, and the town did not hit the rock coming up the hill. They only hit rock when they got to the top of Munson Drive, which is across where I am. If you go across the street from me, Brian Cucci's house, he came out the back of his house, which his septic was in the backyard, and as the street comes around and makes the turn going downhill, he tied in from the backside and got the downhill side of the sewer line and avoided the rock in the street in the front. So unfortunately, I'm the guy that gets the prize here that has all the rock problems, and it's been looked at, go from every direction possible, other than literally going out across my backyard for 500 feet through a neighbor's yard and try to tie into a sewer line on Sunset Drive down all the way behind. There's no way around this rock. And it's, again, Fred Herman, the town engineer, he knew it when they were doing the project. They did soil borings up there. They knew where they were going to encounter the rock, and,
I would imagine you bought the house from Don Hubner?
Yes. Yep. So, that is correct. And,
Okay. Well,
so,
thank you for the explanation. I think, but like you said, time isn't going to solve the issue. I don't know
So what do we need to do, Bob?
what everybody feels.
So
Unless there's a way to...
Yeah, we need a motion. If the decision is to motion to grant it's an application, actually, for an exemption. The motion would be made to grant the application for an exemption or not. And if the motion is made and you want to put some condition upon it, we can add that to it. And I think a letter will go out memorializing what the council decided to do, and that's how that will be preserved in the record.
All right, I'll make that motion.
To do what? To grant the exception?
To grant the exemption.
Any
with-
condition on it?
What condition?
We're going to have to put conditions on it, so
Okay.
I believe that it should be upon title transfer.
Cash sale or not?
Yeah,
Yes.
regardless of what the sale is.
Can we hold?
Or if the septic
Or if
fails.
the septic...
But that's already trumped by state,
It
so
is.
it's going to automatically
It
go.
wouldn't hurt to have that in the letter, though, Tom, and I'm sure you'll put it in there, because that will...
Is that good?
And
Yes.
whose feet to the fire
Yes.
are we holding? This gentleman right here or the buyer?
Well, it does.
We're going to have to negotiate that, and that's not going to be
Issue
for
of
us.
contract.
It's going to be a contract.
That's going to be in their contract of sale.
yeah, that'd be between me and the prospective buyer, I would
Well,
presume.
that's
Right.
exactly right.
Yeah.
And, I mean, that will impact what the value of the property is ultimately, of course.
Ultimately, somebody's going to have to absorb this cost.
Yeah.
Yeah, I understand.
What is your recommendation?
Actually, my thought is if the council would like to decide to grant the waiver, maybe if it's a period of time.
Sorry.
And then the value issue is after that time by the health department, it could be a waiver up to a certain expiration. And then we can revisit whether the cost and the value ratio is the same at that time. Until then, we'll have a waiver, and that we would not pursue anything as the health department prior to whatever time frame you set on it. A sale, I believe, is going to take care of itself. I think it's, if the septic system is, let's say he sells the house in 3 years, but we gave a 5-year waiver. If the owner of the house doesn't
Yeah, see
care,
that?
Right.
and he knows it's an antiquated system, I can't believe any inspector on earth is going to pass the septic because of the age alone, and the liability that they're going to take on for putting their stamp on that thing. So I think that would take care of itself. But if it's sold in 3 years and the new buyer doesn't care because of the value he perceives he's getting, then there's still 2 years before the health department's going to go ahead and look to see if, once that waiver expires, whoever the owner is at that time, is who we're going to require to submit new valuation of estimates, and we can pursue it at that time again. If it's, I mean, that's another way to...
Or you can do time,
I think that's missing.
Or-
I think we just do it on sale and be done with it.
I agree.
I mean, let's
So
not make
just-
this
Let's
a
not make
bigger
it,
soup
like he has
than
to
it is.
come back.
I would agree to the on sale and-
Because house
my
prices
humble
go up
opinion.
and down and up and down. It could be up and then down and
Hey,
then, we all know
We don't want to
that
get involved in
happens.
this again. Just on sale of the house, be done.
Right.
Title transfer.
In my opinion.
Fails, then obviously...
Or if it
the
fails.
mechanism
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
would be in the hands of the court and the health department.
Which we don't have to address, I guess. You would, so it sounds like we had a motion.
I mean,
I'll second.
Are we going to be able to really hold somebody to
The-
this
the
if there's a cash sale?
Yeah, well, if two things will happen. If there's a cash sale, he'll have to disclose it, or he'll have problems on his hand. This was, you'll have problems that will have nothing to do with us,
Yeah.
your hands, if you don't disclose it. And yes, we'll be able to enforce it, because if they come back to the council, we're going to say, I'm sorry, this was on the record, you knew it was going to happen, it happened.
And if his daughter decides to take ownership of the house?
If he transfers title to her, that's still going to be an issue.
That's what I just said.
Yeah.
For a title.
Yeah.
Right.
Would you mind clearly stating what the motion is?
Nope.
Let's try.
I will. So the motion made was to grant the exemption under section...
-9B.
Yep, thank you.
Thanks, John.
It's right here.
With the proviso that upon transfer of title, the exemption will expire.
Okay.
Well, I think title would still transfer.
That's still a transfer in title.
That's why I just asked.
Yep.
Just saying that.
The estate has to be closed.
The estate will have to be closed.
And Bob, you're going to word it, I guess, so it's,
I think we have it, and Tom and I will work on the letter that goes out, which is how, because this is actually a Board of Health matter, it won't be a council resolution on our next agenda, it'll just come out from the health officer as the Board of Health's decision.
Mr. Munson, you understand what
Mr.
just happened,
Munson.
right?
Mr. Robertson, who lives on
Robertson,
Munson.
sorry, yeah. Mr. Munson on Robertson, exactly.
Okay, I've been called a lot. I've never been called Mr. Munson. That's a new one.
you're Mr. Munson, you got the money.
Exactly.
Before,
He lives around the corner from
We
me.
had a motion and a second.
right, but we haven't had a vote.
We need a vote call.
Roll call? Mr. Dreesy?
Yes.
Mr. Hurd?
Yes.
Mr. Cole?
Yes.
Mrs. Russell?
Yes.
Mayor Florence Lynch?
Yes.
Okay, now you can celebrate.
All right, there you go.
Drinking my tea.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'd like to thank the council for everything, and I'd like to thank Tom he's been a tremendous help.
Thank you, Tom.
Really appreciate your help, Tom. Thank you.
Thanks for helping
Thank you,
us.
Tom.
Thank you for coming.
I hope
Thank
your
you,
septic
Mr.
lasts
Munson.
for a
Sorry we
long
had to drag
time.
you down. I'm glad we got this done.
Yeah,
Always my intention was to tie in, that's why this really dragged on so long.
we understand.
When did you buy that house? When did you buy that?
Thank you, Mr. Cantizano.
Thank you. 99.
Bye, Tom. Thank you.
I lived down the street from there.
You do?
Well, I did. Yeah. I was friends with Tony up there.
Like, seriously.
Youngest.
All right, thank you so much. You want to
Thank
continue
you.
so we can get out of here?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, there are no reports or notices for this evening, so we're going to go into council reports and announcements. Can I start with you, Councilman DeRisi?
Okay.
Good evening, Mr.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I didn't have any committee meetings this month. I know the Historic Committee met before the meeting that I missed, so there wasn't much new coming out of that. Just a couple things I'd like to just say congratulations to Police Chief Dan Commune on his new negotiated agreement. I look forward to many, many years of him working with us. I'd like to also just thank the DPW for keeping the roads clear when I was vacationing down in Florida. You had a couple snowstorms, so I did. But I heard they did a good job.
They did.
And then just to carry on, thank you to Mr. Brewer, Mr. Osteich, and Mrs. Marsh for helping us through all of this council stuff. After our budget meeting last Saturday, I guess, I'd like to thank Mr. Brewer and Miss Julie and the rest of the township staff for putting that together. That is quite a document.
Thank you.
And I think it was well put together. Thank you to the rest of the police department for keeping us safe, the fire departments for doing what they do, the first aid squad for taking care of the other peoples that are sick, and thank you to the residents of Pequannock Township for allowing me to sit up here. So thank you much.
You all right?
Very good. Nice job. Okay, I'll go to, who should I go to next? How about Councilman Hurd?
Thank you, Mayor. First, I want to thank John. I'm so thankful. I really do appreciate it. Open space, we didn't have a quorum, but for the most part, unfortunately, nothing new there. I do want to say congratulations to Pequannock Cares. Just to clarify, it was March 18th was their next
March 18th is the paint and sip.
March 18th was a paint and sip.
March 18th is the paint and sip. The next meeting is the 28th at the
If
Legion.
you just want to paint and
Got it.
sip.
Well,
your
you could
place?
just sip and nothing.
It's going to be at a place, and they're going to do a wine glass.
Excellent. So, congratulations. I like what they're doing over there.
Yes.
And it's great that they just started and already gave Fire Company 1, 2, and First Aid Squad money. That's phenomenal. And lastly, happy 2/22/22. Apparently, it's not going to happen for like 400 years again.
I ain't gonna be here.
Me neither.
You got it. John, I just want to say you got to be more positive, sir. Just so you know. That's all I have, Mayor. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And Councilman Cole?
I don't have anything other than, it looks like our next meeting for the budget is March 1st,
Yes, sir.
and it says 6 to 7, and then March 8th is 6 to 8. 6 to 8.
That's a typo, I apologize.
So
Yeah, it's 6 to 8 if we need it for the first, but obviously we have the council meeting at 7 o'clock
All right, on the 8th.
on the 8th, which would put a hard stop at 7 o'clock.
All right, the only other thing that I wanted to just mention, there is a rather large pothole on Ackerson, and I hit it every damn time I drive. If there's a car coming, I can't avoid it.
You know that round, that round thing that you hold?
I'll have Public Works get on it.
All right, and Councilwoman Russell?
Okay, the library met last Wednesday. They will be hosting the Chamber of Commerce meeting on the 24th at 7:30 a.m. So if anybody's awake for breakfast, feel free to go. Melissa, I think they said you'll be there. Adam will be there. Anybody else? I think I'm going to try
That's
to go.
this Thursday, right?
7:30 in the morning.
This Thursday.
It was hosted?
Yeah.
I might be there, children depending.
Yeah, exactly.
say it was hosting
No, the 24th, the Chamber of Commerce.
Oh, you were just talking about the Chamber of Commerce meeting.
Also, the Friends of the Library are planning to host a concert, and that's tentatively scheduled for June 24th. The next meeting at the library is March 16th via Zoom. Parks and Rec, the next meeting is March 7th. Membership from PV Park is strong. It's up from where it was last year, so we're hoping for good things. Environmental, I know you guys got that resolution from ANJAC that they would like passed, which I believe we're going to talk about at the next meeting, correct?
Yes, the matter was reviewed by the township engineer. Essentially, the resolution states that the municipality should retain control over their
Right.
stormwater management.
Didn't we talk about that a couple of years ago?
There was a stormwater
is a
utility
no-brainer.
that's allowable.
Right.
This is more a recommendation to say the state shouldn't limit the local ability to regulate.
Right.
By way of example, our stormwater management has greater restrictions because of our CRS rating.
Right.
So our ordinance already has things that exceed the state model.
Right.
But it's really a local control issue, which I
Right.
think is
They wanna-
something...
They want to try to tell us what to do.
I would recommend, so
Right.
unless there's objection, I'm going to schedule it for the council's potential approval on the next meeting.
Yeah. April 2nd, they're doing a mini bio blitz. April 7th, Tom Newman is giving info about the library on the New Jersey ban on single-use plastics. If you guys haven't already heard about that, start getting your bags. You won't be able to get a bag when you go anymore.
Do we know when
To
that's going into
ShopRite.
effect?
Yeah, May, isn't it?
May.
May something.
Yeah, it's coming up.
So it's
May
been
5th is in my head,
twice
or May,
already, right?
yeah, so, April 9th is the river cleanup, May 14th is rain barrel, October 15th is the Pequannock Hoedown. Already we have these dates.
Already.
Next meeting, environmental, is 3/9 at the senior house or via Zoom, whichever you prefer. And that's all I have.
All right, thank you. A couple of things. The Flood Advisory Committee met on February 10th. Jennifer McCulloch gave her highlighted report. 2021 elevation grant applications were approved by New Jersey OEM and submitted to FEMA. Construction certification management procedures have been developed. Formal plan for management of all construction documents, especially on the elevation certificates. Our National Flood Insurance Program, obviously, for the MAP appeals, they're continuing monthly meetings with FEMA, and, you know, our representatives here, and they expect the draft map to be finalized by the end of October 2022, and new maps adopted by the end of April 2023. community rating system. Our township class rating of 5 was certified again for this year, so there's that 25% discount on the insurance, on the flood insurance. What else do I have? That was Economic Development Committee meets tomorrow night, right here in this room. And what else do I have? Little League Parade, April 23rd. We'll start at 8:30 from PV School. I did want to ask if we've learned anything about Channel 77. I know there are people that ask me about that every once in a while, and the last thing I sent you, I know you said that we were having some challenges, not us, but there's issues with the channel, and I just wondered if you got an update.
Yeah, not a new issue to be mentioned at
Right.
the council, but there were challenges with Optimum.
Really?
The issue, there's the Optimum side or the Altice side, and then there's the equipment that we have.
Right.
So we're going to need to update our equipment, but all of the pegs, the public access channels were down when that came in. I have to follow up with the staff that was working on it to see what the response was. Because we sent it up to the government affairs people at Altice. They quickly said, we're going to send it over to our technical people, and then I have to follow up and find out where it is.
Okay.
But we're working on it, and we're going to resolve it as expeditiously as possible.
Great, thank you. And then the only other thing I wanted to mention, I did forward this to Adam. We had a conversation, but just for the rest of you, Community Partners of Hope, as we know, headed up by Doug Cook's
Yes.
group with lots of representation from all over the town. They're doing a terrific job. They are looking for suggestions. They want to bump up the need, whatever needs they can give to the residents. They have some things scheduled for the year, 2 meal food packing events, one in Pequannock and one in Lincoln Park. What?
When's the next, do
They
you know
have
when that Pequannock tent is?
2 stigma-free walks, one in each town. They have, of course, the Pequannock tree lighting ceremony they do. So those are the things that they've been doing. They want to add some more stuff, but they are out of ideas. So, I mean, they have the best representation to come up with the ideas, but they are looking if people have ideas on how to serve the residents. Whether it's, the overall population, those in need, students, whatever it might be. So I just figured I'd put that little thought in everybody's head.
Registration is open for the next food packaging event.
Yeah, what is the date of that?
March 19th is the setup, and March 20th is the actual
Right,
day.
so that'll be coming
Got it.
very soon.
That's in Pequannock, the first one?
Yeah.
That's the Grains of Hope.
PV School, I think.
Yeah, that's...
19th is Saturday, that's a setup, and then the 20th is the actual event.
Got it, thank you.
All right, so that's something that we should definitely encourage people to do. Thank you. All right, that's it. Next on the agenda is public comment. Anyone who wishes to address the council, please come up. Peter, I'm so happy that you are.
My name is Peter Schmidt, 16 Manor Avenue here. So I'm now a proud member of the Economic Advisory Board.
All right.
They meet tomorrow. I cannot speak for them, but what I noticed in our meeting is we don't really know your expectations. What do you want to accomplish economically in this community? Do you have here somehow a document that you say we want to increase our industry base by 20%, or we want to focus more on pharmaceutical, or what is the goal overall? Can the council sort of has a vision what they really want to accomplish as economy in this community?
We do have a mission statement, which I think that's on the agenda, right?
The mission statement is there.
Right. Do you remember what it is?
It is fairly vague. I read it, it's fairly vague. Yeah, improve economy without disturbing the peace. Yeah, that's the mission statement.
You can't do that?
No, if that is the business case,
Peter.
we go for software and something quiet or some services that can be done inside the house. But you see that? Or
Yeah, and Peter and I talked about this after the meeting. I mean, the Economic Development Committee is supposed to be an advisory committee to the council, so, but if there are things that, we as a council want to, have you guys, have the group look into or work on.
the opposite?
No, but they are supposed to be advisory to us.
You could also figure out something and then come tell us.
Right.
We think we'd like to do this.
yeah,
You're
and that
advising
is
us.
perfectly legitimate. You
Yeah.
can request that, and then you can say, okay, we should report every 3 months
Yeah.
at least here as a yeah.
And that's wonderful. That's what we tried to
And that
do.
would be
Yeah.
something that would be, I think, if they would, or if we would have to report to you regularly,
Yeah.
maybe we would come up a little
Yeah,
bit
your
sharper with
liaison,
something
right,
to report.
comes and she
Is there
reports.
anything in the
Yeah.
new master
Yeah,
plan that would
and
help?
like I said to Peter, the last thing, what was that?
The new master plan.
Right, so I know that some of the last things we've talked about, or we've been talking about as a group, is yes, now that we went through the master plan, before you were involved, we had, that group gave input into the master plan.
Sure, sure.
So now it's all about how do we, I guess it would be organically, like, make
Yeah.
something happen. It's
Yeah.
really more about you guys being out there, talking to people, saying, hey, Pequannock is a great place to come. It's a lot easier to work,
Right. The
work with the
original-
town and be,
Our original mission was
Right.
to see if we can make everything more business friendly. So
Right.
some of the things we worked on in the beginning, early on, were things like making it easier to get a sign over your business.
or open a business in
Or
town.
open a business. So we
You
worked
see,
with...
I can volunteer for that, but all you said right now, I could write up and say, this is the demand
Yeah.
from the council or the wish from the council.
Don't say
that
demand.
the
Yeah, don't say
group-
demand.
Don't say demand, Peter.
But I understand what you're saying, Peter.
Yeah.
Globally, it's how do we make the township more business friendly? How do we make it a more walkable downtown?
Yeah, walkable
And how do we
community.
give the residents,
You're giving me now
more
those
economic
points, yeah?
things?
I write it up and maybe you can document that of saying, this is what we
Yeah.
would like to have from the economic.
Yeah, what would be great, and we did this in the past, and I have to admit, it hasn't been followed lately. We used to have every group come in twice a year. And at the end of the year, they would come in, or in the beginning of the next year, come in and say, these are the accomplishments of what we did last year, and this is what we plan to do moving forward. I know some of the things that the Economic Development Committee were working on were things like, re-looking at the tax reward program to see if that was something they wanted to bring back. What Ryan said before about making sure those documents are readily available, so if I'm a new business owner and I come in town and I don't know where to go, people
Making it easier.
people were going to the municipal building as opposed to the
I
zoning
have
office or
a
whatever.
strong opinion about that.
Yeah.
As soon as I see the list of forms that I have to fill out, I would run away.
Right. So-
And we're on the good
Maybe
side.
there are better ways to
Correct.
help businesses
And these-
to walk the maze.
Right, and then, of course, the master plan.
However, okay.
So you can talk
I
about that.
I write that up a little bit and then, of course, the last thing afterwards, it's nice to see the council working for the people and not the other way around.
Appreciate that.
I
Thank
think
you,
that's
Peter.
good to see. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I love
you for
Peter.
your
He's very
ideas.
data-driven.
He is, he's very good that way. He's
Yeah.
like, no chat, just work, just do it.
I asked them whether we could assign homework in the...
Yeah, before we left, he wanted homework.
That's awesome. Thank you, Peter. I appreciate
Okay.
it.
All right, that's it for public comment. Frank, you got anything tonight? Okay. Next on the agenda is minutes for approval from February 8th, 2022.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes from February 8th, 2022.
I'll second.
All in
quick.
favor?
Aye.
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 There was two people that have to abstain.
Oh,
from
I
that.
abstain.
Me. I didn't say anything.
Okay. I'll say aye, and the two of you have to abstain.
Aye.
Very-
Duly noted.
All right, thank you. I think that's it.
Thank God for
Next-
Carol.
Next is closed session. Is there a motion to approve Resolution 2022-66, authorizing the Township Council to meet in executive session?
I'll make that motion.
Anybody else? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. At this time, the public portion of the meeting is recessed for the closed session. Thank you, Peter, for coming, as always.